Hey guys, this is ABC Brady. I made a video a little bit earlier about these turbines, and as you can see, it kind of expanded a little bit. And I thought it'd be smart to also do at least a little bit of tutorial on these boilers, because like the turbines, they're not exactly the most intuitive machines to build. There's a few things that you need to know going into it, so yeah, I thought as the developer, it'd be kind of smart to kind of go over a few of these specifics that I think would be good to know as you're getting started building one. And to start, I'm going to need to get rid of this little cable here because this is just kind of boosting the energy, which I'll get into in a second of this boiler. But to describe this function in a basic sentence, the boiler basically uses heat energy to turn water into steam. And that steam can then be brought into a turbine if you want. And the turbine, you can see, is now producing steam. You can see it's spinning pretty fast in there. And that's from all the steam that's being processed from this boiler into here. And you can see that we're pumping lots of water into this steam boiler. So the concept's pretty simple. Water turns into steam, and then that steam can be used to produce energy. And from a high-level point of view, you can see that that's kind of redundant in many cases, and it's true. In many cases, you're not going to need this boiler. The turbine is a much more useful item, in my opinion, because the turbine can produce energy from any steam no matter what, and that steam can be produced from, say, a reactor, which can produce 1.6 million millibuckets of steam per every tick, and this thing takes a lot more building to produce nearly that much, and of course it requires energy. So this is really just kind of like, I don't know, I felt like I could not create a turbine and not create a boiler, but I could definitely see some cases where this could be useful, the creation of a boiler, so I will definitely cover how this works. So let's get started. First big thing to understand is that this thing does not generate water. Well, it does not generate steam, excuse me, based on electrical energy. All the energy that's put into this machine is heat energy, and in fact the heat energy is brought in from a new system that I developed for Mekanism version 9, and in fact saying that I developed that is totally not true. It was my co-developer, Unpaired Bracket, who's put a ton of work into this, but I polished off the system, and we have it working pretty well. In fact, the heat system I've integrated across several machines, including what was once called a solar evaporation plant, which is now called thermal evaporation plant, which means that you can use electrical energy to convert to heat energy, which can then power your thermal evaporation plant, which means that you can have it underground without any kind of solar contact, and it can work at all times of the day. So pretty great in many ways. And I will not go very in-depth into the heat system in this video because I just want to focus on this boiler here, but I will say that we now have some fancy new conduits. You can see them here. This is the thermodynamic conduit, which can transfer heat from one source to another. Their mechanics are really cool. And also have this new machine here called the resistive heater, which can take in energy and create heat. You can see that this temperature is super high, and that's because we're using 1 megajoule of energy to heat up this boiler. In fact, that's plenty hot now. You can see that inside the boiler we have 41.2, gosh, it's decreasing pretty fast, but that's because we're processing this water into steam. And you can see that the temperature is really high, and that's all the energy that's being funneled in from this. And obviously, 1 megajoule per tick is an unrealistic amount of energy that you'd be funneling into this unless you had, I don't know, some crazy motive. But regardless, that's just how this works. You can change the value if you want to a lower number. In fact, more realistic would be something like 10 kilojoules, and that will support, I'm pretty sure, 100 max, a value of 100 millibuckets of steam to be turned into steam, obviously, water turned into steam per tick. And you can bump that up to 100,000 joules, which is 100 kilojoules, which would then result in 100 millibuckets of steam per tick. In fact, 1,000. The actual value is going to be a little bit below that because of heat dissipation, but that is irrelevant for now. Anyway, so into the mechanics. You can see we're pumping a lot of water into this, and in fact, you'll see that the water is not getting sucked up from down here, and that is because the new mechanic in version 9 allows you to configure your pumps and the mods configuration to not suck up the source blocks when you're pumping water. And also, we have upgrades of these machines, so security, that is for another video. In the upgrades panel, you can see that we have energy and speed upgrades. So this guy is pumping really fast out of this water here. In fact, this guy can pump, I don't know the exact number, but at least 9 times per second. So very impressive. And going over here, we can see that all the water is being funneled into this boiler, and it is using all of it, because normally we would see the water towering up in here, but it is not because we are putting so much of it in, and it looks like our turbine has become full of steam. Oh, it's because it stopped producing because we had maximum energy and it cut off. So I just need to get a little creative energy cube here to let the energy come out and let the process continue. There we go. You can see the steam starting to funnel out now as the energy decreases. Good. And now that that is done, I can go into depth in how this is created. It is much easier to make one of these boilers than it is to make one of these turbines. The frame is much easier. It's much more simple. You don't need to make some weird structure that has to have a minimum of 5 by 5, and also the length does not need to equal the width. It does not need to be an odd number. If you wanted to, you could make one that's a 6 by 4, and you'd be just fine. In this case, I just made this 4 by 4 base because it'll get the job done pretty well. And you can see that I just built it up, and there's some structural glass in here because, like I said, that's the universal glass in Mekanism version 9 for all multi-blocks. So all that's pretty simple, and you can see these ports here, and these ports are for inserting for exporting steam out of this top tank, and for deporting water, and I need to explain that. Tank dynamics. So basically, inside of this boiler, you have two primary fluid tanks. You have your tank that stores the steam that's created from the water, and then your actual water tank. And the water tank is actually comprised of this entire section down here below these pressure dispersers. So this entire area, including the case from here to here, that entire volume is where the water can be stored, minus the volume taken up by these things. And these are the heaters, and these are basically what heat up the actual water that's pumped inside and turn that into steam. Now, the more heaters you have, the more energy can be used to process directly into the water to create more steam. So basically, when you have a really big one, you might need some more of these guys to help turn all of that water into steam more quickly. And you can see opening up with the interface, we have a max boil rate of 400,000 millibuckets per tick. Now, this is going to be a very hard number to approach. You can see we are only reaching an average of about, let's say that's about 2,500 millibuckets per tick. And that is from, what is this? We have 10 pumps here, fully upgraded, pumping into here. So obviously, if you had a ton of pumps, you could probably reach that number, but that is far out from now. And if we open up this statistics panel, you can see it in a bit more detail. Spent a lot of time here making a cool little graph that helps you see things visually on the boiler. And you can see that here. You can mouse over and it'll give you kind of a scaled value of about where the mouse is. So right about here, if you average it out, yeah, it's about 2,700 is the average boil rate for this boiler. And you can see that in this case, the max boil rate is actually at its capacity of 400,000 millibuckets per tick. And that is because, in this case, we have a surplus of energy. You can see the temperature is very high. And if you remember some basic chemistry from high school, you'll know that it takes a temperature, and this is in Kelvin, so let's get to Celsius, but it takes a temperature of 100 degrees Celsius to start turning water into steam. And there's the enthalpy of vaporization, which I have calculated very delicately. It's not obviously accurate, but it is accurate in Minecraft terms to make sure that it aligns with other mods, and to make sure that balance stays true between the rest of Mekanism. So, with that being said, inside the interface here, like I said, the temperature is going down. Once this reaches 100 degrees, we are no longer going to have this surplus boil rate. In fact, opening this up, right now it's still at the max boil rate. The boil capacity is at 400,000, which we already talked about, but the max boil rate is going to start to decrease as the temperature decreases, because as we have so much energy put inside of here, and it's only producing at this small value of 2,500 millibuckets per tick on average, we actually, if we funneled enough water into this, we could probably produce for at least a couple ticks 400,000 millibuckets per tick of steam. Well, that would be the rate. And it's not doing that because we're not putting enough water in. So we could theoretically reach that maximum value if we put in enough. And the boil rate's remaining about constant because that's how much water we're putting in. And you'll see that once this temperature reaches more of an equalized temperature, then it's going to stop producing nearly as much steam. In fact, it's going to stop producing steam altogether because we're not putting any energy into this boiler. But if we did put in more energy, this would be producing about roughly, well, where is it right now? Right now we have 100,000, so this would be producing 1,000, or probably like 999, 998 millibuckets per tick. So that's basically the basic mechanic of that. There are a few things to go over in terms of the multi-block structure. So On the inside here, the way to access the different tanks, so this is the steam tank and this is the water tank, obviously, in this specific setup. This right here, this is going to be accessing the steam tank, and that's because it's above the pressure disperser. So this little row or horizontal plane of pressure dispersers that you put inside of your boiler, that basically determines what separates the steam tank, which is up here, from the water tank, which is down here. And so if you wanted to, you could make a really, really big water tank by putting this up another layer, and then you'd have another 4, well, total actually, 16 volume blocks that you could use to store water, including the casing, because the casing is included in the volume. And same for the steam. So the total steam volume is from this block to this block. But, so yeah, on the inside here, you can change the value, and in fact, it looks like we just reached something. Yeah, we no longer have enough energy to turn this water, so let's reconnect our conductor here. You can see after connecting it here, we have a very high boil rate once again because the temperature is increasing. But anyway, get the casing back on there. So like I said, you can change the size of either tank. I honestly don't think you need a very big steam tank because you're most likely going to be funneling all the steam out of your boiler anyway. But hey, if you want a really big one, you can do that too. And then down here we have the water tank. And the water tank is unique in that you also need heating elements in order to make sure that your water is being turned into steam. So these blocks come in handy for that, and they actually by default look like this when there's not a structure or when the temperature is not above 100 degrees Celsius. And so as soon as you place the block down, you'll see that it lights back up. But basically, these guys are placed inside the machine, and these are actually what heat up the water into steam. And there's a few little important things you need to note when putting this together. You can really, oh, excuse me, like I said, I'm coming down from a bit of a cold. But if we have some more of these heaters, I can explain. Actually, no, I don't have it in my inventory. Right, so going inside of this, there's a few things that you have to note. Here, just break this other glass. So I can really place these anywhere I want. I can place them like this. I could make a really big storage area of just these heating elements, and this would actually be just fine. Obviously, you would not have very much water room to work with, but you would have a lot of heating capacity in case you wanted to have a ton of water being pumped into this thing. Obviously, you could not actually support that much water because it wouldn't be in the tank, but these are things that you need to put into account when you're creating your boiler. But there's a couple little things, and that is that you need to make sure that all these are connected, first of all. So if we have something like this, guess what? This is not going to form a valid structure because these are not connected. We need to connect them first. And as soon as we connect these, you'll see if we try to form a structure again, it'll work just fine. And it'll light up, and you can see the water filling up now because we do not have enough energy put inside of this. But getting rid of this again, there's another thing that could also cause this to not work. Say that we cut down on this a little bit and we reach this upwards to have something like this. It's all connected, right? Well, here's the problem. Because water is stored in here, this is technically blocking off this area of water from this area of water. Because of that, this is also not going to form. So actually, I take that back. Excuse me. I also forgot I added that. The only thing you need to worry about is making sure that these guys are connected, because the water actually volume is included in these the area of the glass and the frames. So as long as all your superheaters inside are connected, you're going to be good to go. Excuse me, I would have thought that I would have known that, but I must be a bit tired. Anyway, putting this back, everything looks in order, and the only reason that this is stopped is because we do not have enough energy being funneled inside. So give it a bit of energy. You'll see the water start to go down again because the superheaters are heating up the water to reach their capacity. And you'll see that this is actually going down a bit. Like I told you, it's going to reach equilibrium right at about 1,000 millibuckets per tick. And in fact, let's see what we're doing right now. So that basically makes sense based on the calculations that you're plugging in here. If we gave this 10,000 joules of energy per tick, this would scale down to 99 or roughly 100. And yeah, so that's basically the way that this guy works. I spent a long time on both of these, and I hope that you guys enjoyed them because they were definitely fun to work on. And there's probably going to be a few problems with them, so obviously if you have any suggestions or feature requests, I'd be happy to add them into the next minor release. And I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys build with these. So hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you guys later.